Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. If you're new here, my name is Nishitha. Please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. I upload videos every Sunday and Thursday at 9 a.m. PST. In today's video, I'm just going to sit here and talk about my favorite makeup brushes of all time. If I had lost all of my brushes, let me tell you guys, I do have a lot of brushes. These are the first ones that I would go out and purchase. Actually, these are the only ones I would go out and purchase. I might probably get duplicates of these because, over the years, the more I use them, the more I realized what kind of brushes are best for my makeup application, like for my face structure. So I'm just going to walk you guys through all the brushes that I love in the order I apply my makeup. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about three different brands. One is Morphe, the second is Luxe, and the third is Real Techniques. The reason I narrowed it down to these three brands is because first, I love makeup brushes from these lines. Second, I just don't want to overwhelm you guys with a lot of different options. I love Morphe brushes and they're very affordable, and Luxe brushes are of amazing quality. Like, original price is a little bit up there, but Luxe always has a 50% sale. The brushes that I'm going to talk about today, I never got them for a full price. I've always bought them when there were discounts on the website. Subscribe to their email list. You will get 50% off coupons all the time. You can buy those brushes then. But let me tell you guys, out of all the brushes that I'm going to show you today, they are of the best quality. I have washed them like so many different times, but they never shed on me. So I'm going to mainly stick to these three brands today. First, I'm going to talk about eye brushes. I'm going to go in the order in which I apply my makeup. I always start off my eye makeup by using some concealer on my eyelids to cover the hyperpigmentation that I have there. And to blend out the concealer, I always use a Morphe E22. This brush is perfect for that purpose. It's because it's perfectly dense and it will give you maximum coverage out of your concealer and will cover all the pigmentation that you have on your eyes. And the size of this is perfect because it just fits right on my eyelids. I absolutely love this brush. This is really high quality and it's very affordable. I have washed this particular brush like so many times before, but it never sheds on me. And once I have my concealer on, then I go in with this fluffy crease brush. This is the Morphe JH30. I absolutely love this brush, either to slightly dust some powder into my crease to set the concealer, and I also love this to go in with my first lighter color transition. This brush is not as dense. That's what you want to blend out the crease color, because you just want to light wash of color all over your crease, but you don't want it to be really dark and how do I say it? You just want the eyeshadow to look really blended out and blown out. For that, this brush is perfect because it's not densely packed. It just blends out the color beautifully onto your crease, and it's very fluffy. So I highly recommend you use these kinds of brushes, like these fluffy crease blending brushes, to diffuse out your first transition color. The next step is to intensify the crease a little bit. This second transition shade is always going to be a little bit darker than the first transition shade that I use. That's the usual way that I do my eye makeup. And for that, I use two different brushes. One is the Luxe 229 Tapered blending. As the name suggests, tapered. It's not going to be as fluffy as the previous one that I just talked about. And the other one that I love for this purpose, to deepen up the color in my socket and in my crease, is the Real Techniques one. I don't know the name of it because it has completely rubbed off, but I love these two brushes to intensify the crease color a little bit more, because it's not as fluffy as the previous one, and I can use this to deposit the color into my crease as well, but I don't want to go as high as I did with the previous transition shade. For that, I usually use a fluffy crease brush because I want the lighter color to be really blown out, whereas the second deeper color, I don't want it to be as blown out as the first one. So that's why this brush is perfect for that purpose. So I really love these two brushes. Moving on, it's time to deepen up the outer corners. So we've gotten the first lighter transition color. I have deepened up the crease. Now it's time to intensify the outer corners. And I use the brush Morphe M51. This has been my go-to brush to intensify the outer corners for almost 3 years now. It's very precise. It's much more smaller than the previous brushes that I talked about, and it's perfect to pack the color in the outer corners because it's not too dense, and that's what you want. Because since it's a really dark color, you want a brush that will slowly build up the pigment, because with darker colors, you always want the brush to be really small and not as dense, because you should still be able to blend out the color. Absolutely love this, and I highly recommend this because more often than not, we tend to deepen up the outer corners of our eyes to give it some definition. So I absolutely love this brush for that. And this is the only brush that I use to deepen up my outer corners. No matter how many other brushes that I have, this is the only one I keep reaching for. So now that I have the outline of my eyeshadows, I've deepened up the outer corner, I have my crease colors laid down. Now it's time to cut my crease. This like, not all of us like do cut crease tutorials, but for my eye shape, cut creases work the best because, I don't have a lot of lid space. By doing a cut crease, I can give the illusion that I have more lid space than I actually do. And to apply my concealer, to do the cut crease, I usually use the Morphe E19. This is how the brush looks like. It is a flat shaded brush, but it is like more tapered. It's not as, wide like the other flat shaded brushes that you see. And it's perfect because it's very easy to get, right in your inner corners and apply the concealer. So you don't go really high, but it will still give you that, precise application of the concealer. I absolutely love this brush to do all of my cut creases. So this particular brush is of really high quality as well. All the Morphe brushes that start with E are of high quality. No matter how many times I wash them, they never shed on me. And I absolutely love this brush for, to do my cut creases. The next step is the lid color. So I usually prefer my lid colors to be really intense because most of the time I go with a shimmery shadow. So for that, I usually use the Morphe JH41. There's nothing much to talk about this. It's just, a good flat shaded brush which packs on your, shimmery shadows really well. To be honest, you can just use your fingers to pat that shimmery shadow all over your lid. But the thing is, when you want to get that precise application, a flat shaded brush is always helpful. So that's why, I highly recommend this. It's a really good flat shaded brush. So the next step is that inner corner highlight. And I usually go for this Real Techniques accent brush. This is how it looks like. It's very tiny, so it's perfect to, reach your inner corners. And it's not very, stiff because I don't like my brush that I use in my inner corners to be really stiff because, I tend to stab myself. I don't do it. I was just exaggerating. But anyways, this is perfect to, get your inner corner highlight. And I also use this underneath my brow bone as well. Moving on to a good eyeliner brush. This is from Morphe. It's called their R45. This is perfect to apply all of your gel liners, and also if you want to pack a darker color closer to your lash line because it's stiff enough to give you that control to pack on the color. And I prefer my eyeliner brushes to be a little bit stiff because it gives you that control and it doesn't make the eyeliner move here and there. It's perfect to get you that nice precise eyeliner application. So I absolutely love this brush for that purpose. Moving on to lower lash line, I always go in with the pencil brush, which is a little bit rounded. This is Morphe E36, I think. Yeah, Morphe E36. This is perfect to diffuse out the lighter color on your lower lash line. It's very soft. I don't like the brushes that I use on my lower lash line to be really stiff because I don't know. I just feel it's a little bit irritating if it's really stiff. So that's why I absolutely love this brush to diffuse out eyeshadow on my lower lash line. It gives you that perfect blown out look if you use the brush a little bit inclined. If you want it to be a little bit more precise, I would say, use it horizontally. So, you can just use the tip of it and get a precise application. And to deepen up my, lower lash line, usually I prefer to go for a really precise pencil brush. I more often than not reach for the Morphe M51. This is very tiny. It's perfect to pack on that, deeper colors on your lower lash line because the deeper the color gets, the more you want to keep it to your lower lash line. And this is perfect for that because it's very precise. It's going to give you that intensity, but it's not going to make the eyeshadow go everywhere and give you raccoon eyes. So that's why I absolutely love this brush for that. So those are all the eye brushes. Now let's move on to face. First, let's start off with foundation. For foundation, I usually go with my, good old beauty blender, but sometimes I prefer to apply my stick foundations with foundation brush. For that, I usually go for two different brushes. One is from Luxe. It's called their 538 flat angled blender. This is how the brush looks like. I absolutely love this. It's very soft. It doesn't leave any streak marks on my face when I blend out my foundation, and it's very quick as well. So 2 swipes and you're done because the size of the brush is really big. I absolutely love this foundation brush to blend out all of my stick foundations. Whereas the other one is the Real Techniques blending brush. I'm sure most of you already own this. I think actually not blending brush. It's called a buffing brush. This is perfect to blend out the foundation. But the difference between these two is that with this foundation brush, since this is very densely packed, you will get a little bit more coverage when compared to this brush where the bristles are not very densely packed. So I absolutely love both of these brushes to blend out my foundation. So if you're looking for a good buffing brush to blend out your foundation, I'd say try either one of these. So next step is to apply the concealer. I'm going to be honest, I don't use brushes to blend blend out my under eye concealer, because I feel like that way the concealer starts to cake up underneath my eyes. It just doesn't look good on me. So I always use my beauty blender to blend out my concealer. So I'm not going to sit here and suggest you guys something that I don't use myself. So I just, use my beauty blender. But to set the concealer in place with some powder, I always use the Morphe M438. This is the only brush that I will ever use to set my concealer in place, because I've tried so many of them and I feel like they feel a little bit stabby underneath my eyes. I just don't like it. I always find myself reaching for it. I'm like obsessed with this. I highly recommend you try this brush. The shape of this is perfect because the tapered end will help you like reach all those corners. This is the only brush that I will ever use to set my concealer in place. I own 2 of these. I'm sure I will eventually add more to my collection. So that tells you like how much I love this brush. I highly recommend you try this one out to set your concealer in place. So then moving on to bronzer or contour, I use 2 different brushes. This one is mainly for contour. As you can see, it is a little bit smaller in size, whereas the other one that I use for my bronzer is a little bit bigger when compared to the contour, because I think that contour is something that you have to keep it just in the hollows of your cheekbones, whereas bronzer is something that you could go above the hollows of your cheekbones. So bronzer is more diffused out, whereas the contour is just to give your face that structure. So it has to be more precise. So this Real Techniques, what is this called? I think this is a setting brush, but I mainly use this, to apply my contour. So I absolutely love this brush for that purpose, because it's not very dense, and since it's really small, it's perfect to get that precise application, because if you apply too much contour, your makeup can start looking muddy. So to avoid that, I usually stick to smaller brushes like these to do my contour. Then for bronzer, I usually go for my Luxe 516 Duo Fiber Powder. This is perfect to apply your bronzer if you're someone who likes to build up the pigmentation. I don't like to use really densely packed brushes for this. Bronzer is something you don't want like a stripe on your face. You want something that looks like, really diffused out onto your cheekbones, just to give you that nice sun-kissed glow. So that's why you want a brush that is, that will allow you to slowly build up the pigmentation. For that purpose, I absolutely love this brush because it's not very densely packed, so it will allow me to slowly build up the pigmentation. And then it's a little bit tapered at the end. So it's perfect to get in the hollows of your cheekbones, but you can also, once you apply the bronzer, you can blend it upwards. That's why I absolutely love this brush, to blend out my bronzer. So then I have 3 different blush brushes depending on, how I want my blush to look like depending on how intense I want it to be. So for every day, when I don't want my blush to be really intense, when I don't want to look like I'm wearing a lot of blush, but I just want a slight wash of color on my cheeks, I usually go for the brush Luxe 640, which is Pro Precision Tapered. So it's very soft. It's very loosely packed, so it's perfect to slowly build up the color and fluff out the blush all over your cheeks. So for every day, I like to apply my blush from my cheeks to my hairline. So I just want to diffuse out the color so it looks as natural as possible and as less intense as possible. So I absolutely love this brush to just get that light wash of color all over your cheeks without it being really intense. Sometimes when I'm doing full glam makeup looks, I don't want to bring the blush onto the apples of my cheeks. I mainly want it to stick to the sides of my face, like from here to here. I don't want to bring it to the apples of my cheeks because that full glam look is going to give you that lifted effect. Whereas when you apply the blush on the apples of your cheeks, it gives that more just like you've been in the sun, more flushed out, like youthful look. But whenever I want to go for full glam looks, I just like to keep my blush from this in this region, and I feel like this brush is perfect for that because you can control where you're applying your brush. Since it's not very fluffy, you're not going to bring the blush onto the apples of your cheeks. It is a little bit more densely packed than the first blush brush that I showed you guys, but it is still not very dense to a point where you will add a lot of color. Even with this brush, you can slowly build up the intensity of your blush. Next, if I want to apply the blush all over my cheeks, from the apples of my cheekbones to my hairline, and if I want it to be really intense, that's when I use this brush. As you can see, it is a big blush brush. This is from Real Techniques and it is called their blush brush. First time I'm using a brush for what it's meant to be. This brush is perfect if you're someone who likes to wear a lot of blush. On some people it looks really beautiful because even though this is really big, it's not very densely packed, but it is a little bit more dense when compared to the other brushes that I showed you guys. So whenever I want to go a little bit ham on the blush, apply a lot of it, I use this and just go from here to here. It's very quick because it will cover a lot of the area on your face and you will get that nice romantic cheeks. I absolutely love this brush to apply blush. Moving on. For highlighter, I would highly recommend you check out the Morphe M51. This is perfect for getting your highlighter onto your cheekbones because it's not too big, so you can keep it just on the high points of your face, and it's not too stiff, so it's not going to give you that stripe of highlight on your cheeks, which I don't think it looks very flattering. Since it's not too stiff, you can use this to diffuse out the highlighter so it looks more blended in and natural. I absolutely love this brush for highlighting. So if you're looking for a good one and done highlighter brush, I would say give Morphe Y14 a try. And then last but not the least, a big old powder brush. So once you apply all of your makeup, if you just want to set all of it in place, I love to use this Luxe 518 large powder brush because I don't like to apply a lot of powder on my face just in general, just because I feel like it looks a little bit more drying, but I do want to set my makeup in place. So that's why I like to use a powder brush that is not very dense and it's very big because it's very quick. You can, do this and cover all of your face. It just slightly diffuses out the powder onto your face without it being too much. Sometimes it can look cakey if you apply a lot of powder. So for that reason, I absolutely love to use this powder brush. Actually, I lied when I said that was the last brush. I have one more brush that I want to talk about. This is the brush that I mainly use for spot concealing. This is the Morphe JH42. I absolutely love this brush to do my spot concealing because it's the perfect size to reach those spots and keep the concealer just on the spot and not move it around too much. It will give you good coverage and it will keep the, concealer on top of the spot without, moving it around and taking the coverage off of the spot, if that makes sense. I don't think it makes sense. But anyways, this is my favorite brush to do spot concealing. I like to use a precise brush to do my spot concealing, and this is one of my favorites. That's the end of the video. It makes me so happy. I think I have footage that is a little bit over 50 minutes, including several retakes that I've done. So those are all my favorite makeup brushes. I hope this video is helpful, especially if you're someone who is trying to build your own brushes collection. Trust me guys, I have purchased so many brushes in the past that I've thrown out because first I didn't like the quality. I didn't know the purpose of it. I just bought it on the whim, probably because they were on sale. Don't do it. Don't do the mistakes that I've done. I did waste, some money on buying brushes just because they were on sale. I didn't even think if I needed them or not. But now that I've done some damage, I finally know my favorite brushes. So I really hope this video will be like a guide for you if you're trying to build your own makeup brushes collection. So that completes this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye.